Darkwoods. Canada's Black Forest had been the property of the German House of Württemberg for 42 years. Here survived the last mountain caribous, the rare freshwater salmon spawn, and endangered bats hibernate. Today, the 55,000 hectares of nature are back in Canadian hands. Instead of German foresters, the Nature Conservancy Organisation and scientists take care of Darkwoods now. Corey Lawson, bat expert. Jerry Nelliston, the keeper of the streams. And botanist Adrian Leslie. Together they want to preserve this unique natural landscape and turn it into a flagship region for Canada. Darkwoods is situated in the south of British Columbia and adjacent to the Rocky Mountains. Its old woods with mighty coniferous trees stretch all the way to the banks of Lake Kootenay. The lake collects the water from the surrounding mountains. Together with the Pacific, it shapes the climate with lots of clouds and precipitation. Darkwoods is a special forest, a cold rainforest with colossal hemlocks and giant cedars. Most of the animals, herbivores or predators, spend the winter in the valleys due to the extreme snowfall. Only one species dares to go up the mountains, even then. This is how it has avoided competition for food and the hunt by predators for millennia. Biologist Leo de Groot is searching for it right now. The mountain caribou. The helicopter flies over Mount Württemberg. Its name commemorates the home of its former owner, Karl Herzog von Württemberg. Again and again, the scars of forestry are visible. The Germans only selectively cut down trees and reforested the empty areas. Some of the regions, however, have been left untouched until today. They're a refuge for some of the last mountain caribous, while all around them their habitat shrinks due to the logging of Canadian forestry. Leo wants to take stock of these rare animals. He wants to know if the protection of their trails and of their ancient food trees has made an impact.
They seem to just end there. Right. So I wonder if they get to icy or snow. See, right here at 9 o'clock, they just end. Oh yeah, got it.
There are as many of them as in the autumn, notes Leo. That's a good sign. The biologist records the exact position of the animals. The mountain caribous are all in good health and seem to have found enough food during the winter high up in Darkwoods. Leo has fitted many animals with transmitters. Only if he knows their whereabouts can he protect them. With their huge fur-covered plate-shaped feet, mountain caribous reach regions that are closed off to other large animals. Predators don't make it this far either. They sink in the deep snow. But when the forest roads used to lead all the way up to the mountains, the wolves were able to follow the caribous and cause immense damage among these rare animals. Nowadays, the roads in Darkwoods are closed to traffic and are becoming overgrown. Now, the caribous are safe again up here. Winter shoes have evolved in the animal kingdom in multiple cases. Rabbits' feet are a good few sizes smaller than the hooves of the caribou, but the principle is the same. A light body on a large foot. And when you spread your toes, the snowshoe becomes huge. The great grey owl also specializes in deep snow by means of an extremely good ear. One of the snow hares has decided to put on its summer coat too early and lost its camouflage. The great owl could easily spot it. But from a great distance, the owl's keen ear detected quiet scurrying under the snow. Small prey is easy prey. However, there are those who are envious. With speedy reflexes, the owl gets itself and its prey to safety. It looks like the competition must go on the hunt itself. In Darkwoods, there are also animals who have not adapted to life in ice and cold. They have to find a place to hibernate. Bats spend their winter in dead wood or under the thick bark of old trees. But where to go if there is no old wood? Biologist Corey Lawson knows where they are hiding. In disused gold and silver mines. Here, only the scientist has access. For the biologist, it's easier to find the animals and take stock of them in the caves than outside. But reaching the bats is far from simple. The frozen waterfalls turn the path into a slippery slope, and in early spring there is a growing risk of meltwater breaking the ice. The man-made tunnels make for ideal hiding places for the bats. The tunnels cover hundreds of underground kilometers of Darkwoods. For Corey, it's always a miracle how these little animals can find their way in the maze of the tunnels. Once she's reached her destination, the biologist doesn't just want to find out which species of bats survive in Darkwoods, but also how these animals behave in these new quarters in winter.
This is a really interesting cluster of bats. It's actually two species roosting together. This is California myotis and silver-haired. Now, these two species I do typically see in these warmer, moister chambers of mines, but interestingly, I don't usually see them clustering together.
The Townsend's big-eared bat, on the other hand, doesn't like company. It is the first awake in early spring and will pump its blood into the finest vessels of its body. This way, it reaches operating temperature. The Californian Myotis obviously have another trick up their sleeve. They sit piggyback on the backs of the larger silver-haired bats to warm themselves up.
My winter research is also looking at how they are roosting and behaving in the winter, and you can actually see a transmitter, very faint wire there from the antenna that I've glued on one of the bats.
Most bats don't fly around in winter. Only when it gets warmer they hunt every now and then, but at first only in the cave. The hibernating insects which keep still will survive. Those who move risk being discovered. Following almost 8 months of winter, spring slowly arrives in Darkwoods. Meltwater turns Darkwoods into waterwoods. Now, hunger drives the bears from their winter quarters down into the valleys, because here the ice of the rivers melts first and the grass can grow. The deer will also have it easier when the rivers are free of ice and bring juicy flotsam down from the mountains. The floodplains of Lake Kootenay at the foot of the mountains are now an important resting place for migrating birds. It is the largest in all of British Columbia. Thanks to the mild climate, the birds find plenty of food early in the year. Flocks of snow geese recover on Lake Kootenay before flying on to the Arctic. Trumpeter swans and flocks of coots feed on the juicy grasses under the surface of the water, while an enemy tries to creep up on them. However, its attempt turns out to be a less than fortunate start to the hunting season for this young eagle. Now, however, its prey is in abundance. A successful hunt should be child's play for it. But the coots have a defense strategy. They confuse the attacker by forming groups and changing course, and by turning the water into a thick wall of spray. The young eagle loses its bearings and eventually its appetite for a coot. As spring is so short, One animal you wouldn't expect in Canada also has to get a move on with procreation. It's the western painted turtle. There used to be a lot of them in British Columbia, but today they are deemed an endangered species. However, in the marshy area of Lake Kootenay, they find a safe refuge. Often, the few places in the sun are actually overcrowded. These reptiles can live to an old age of 30 years, and they have traveled across many kilometers to this place to find a partner. Now everything has to be fast. This goes for the Canada geese too. Change of scene for a nursery group. In front they are shown the way, in the back they are pushed forward so that no youngster gets lost. Is the red-winged blackbird just belting out its spring song, or does it want to startle the turtles? No one knows. In any case, there is a lot going on in spring on the banks of Lake Kootenay. In June, the temperatures are warm enough for the cherry blossom. The floodplains of Lake Kootenay are extremely fertile. People live off fruit farming and livestock breeding. Around this time, the inhabitants of the valley always have visitors from the mountains. No wonder, for the fresh protein-rich grass is as high as a bear. It's a power meal after the long hunger period throughout the winter. For some bears, the grass doesn't seem to be enough. They attempt to get closer to man and thus close to danger. That's despite the fact that they only want fresh grass, for they are grazers rather than carnivores. Grizzlies have been coming to the fresh green valley of spring for millennia. However, nowadays roads and settlements break up their trails so that males and females from different regions of the Rocky Mountains can't find each other anymore. Small encapsulated groups of bears are created with no chance of renewing their genetic material. This is why a team of bear researchers are looking for the old trails and want to give the animals free access to them. Michael Proctor, the head of the research group, is mainly interested in the female bears. They use their old trails regularly.
Yeah, we can get it in a minute though, we just need to remember it.
The researchers have been refining the setting of their traps for many years. This way, they make sure that they won't injure the animals.
We're trapping in this half natural valley with a management area in it and a half human settled valley, and the human settlement has fractured the larger once historic bear population in this region. And the Selkirk Mountains on our left that has a historic dark woods property is a very important conservation property, and we're trying to link up from the dark woods through the management area in the Crescent Valley bears into the Purcell Mountains, and we're trying to facilitate female movement across the human settled valley.
Michael Proctor wants to create paths with bridges and underpasses through the inhabited area for the bears. The plan is that the animals can migrate again safely, as they did thousands of years ago. In spring to their pasture grounds in the valley, and in the autumn back to the old woods, their winter quarters. The next day, a motion sensor alerts the researchers of a grizzly caught in the snare. The team is excited to see if it is a male or a female. The animal is immediately sedated.
He's a pretty young bear. The molars are very good. The incisors are terrific.
And they tell Michael the age of the animal, because they keep growing all their life. The she-bear is about 7 years old. The transmitter collar must be fitted accurately. In 2 years' time, it will undo itself and fall off. Until then, the she-bear will deliver enough data to Michael's computer for the scientist to know which paths she takes and where she likes to spend her time.
Got all that?
And up is down on the front sheet.
Okay, super.
He has already ascertained that many other females with transmitters use the same paths and resting places.
Time to go.
In the safety of night, the she-bear will leave the wake-up cage. From now on, she is under observation. In spring of every year, a lot of bears are caught. They are often put in transport cages and taken to assembly points so they can be cared for appropriately. The sedated females are waiting for their transmitter. Everything's going like clockwork here. Michael Proctor's team is experienced. The bear conservationists handle the animals with great care. They make as little noise as possible so not to scare the grizzlies. Even anesthetized, they might notice things. Aggression towards and fear of people must be prevented, or else the grizzlies wouldn't stand a chance in Kootenay Valley. Before they get the transmitter, the bears are weighed and examined.
$33.5.
Their state of health, age, and most importantly, their sex are recorded for the statistics.
Yeah, that's perfect.
This year, only females, some of them with their cubs, have walked into the traps. Only the young females are given a transmitter collar. Their male siblings don't get one. While the mother is still being weighed, her offspring is already looked after. The young male without a transmitter will soon leave his family and find himself a new territory, far away from his mother and female siblings. Spring brings abundant rainfall. In her winter quarters, the female black bear has had her cubs. The little ones are not daunted by wetness from below or above. Their mother is with them and gives them comfort and protection. Porcupines are loners. This animal is seeking cover in a giant cedar, but the fine leaves don't shield from the rain. Soon it is wet through. Spikes don't make for a good raincoat after all. Prey for the bald eagle? No, much too prickly. The clear spots at the foot of the giant trees are now covered by a lush layer of herbs and shrubs. Pine squirrels are the busy gardeners of the forest. They look for, collect and harvest seeds and therefore spread the seed of old giant trees and young shrubs. A family of otters have moved into a strategically favourable spot and they have already caught some prey in the shallow water. Very close by is a Steller's jay, who is trying to get a share of the catch. Thanks to the abundance of water, animals like the otter, who are more water than forest dwellers, also find a home in Darkwoods. It's the combination of old woods and large bodies of water which make this forest unique. Giant trees shape its image, but it's also the little, hardly visible plants which keep the water circuit of this cold rainforest going. Mosses, with their millions of sprouts and leaves, are an ideal water reservoir, as are lung lichen. They collect water in thousands of little buckets. Around here, orchids like the striped coral root are the heralds of spring. The giant devil's club is a characteristic plant of the cool rainforest. A delicate bird, weighing barely 4 grams, which you wouldn't expect to find in Canada, makes use of the sumptuous flowers in the undergrowth. Anna's hummingbird. The female has plain colours. The head of the male, on the other hand, shimmers in the light. A splash of colour against the green of the forest. In spring, Darkwoods becomes the water reservoir for the entire region. The common merganser likes plenty of water. It's mating season now, and the courting for the females is on in the water with an energetic display. Melt and rainwaters combine in spring to form roaring streams and supply the forest until deep into the summer. This is the time for Jerry Nelliston, the stream keeper in the Black Forest. He is responsible for the rivers and the life within them. Streamkeeper is a profession which only exists in Canada. Here the rivers are still full of primordial life. In Europe, dams and weirs block most of the river courses so that fish can no longer migrate to their spawning grounds. Each year, they have to be refilled with farmed fish. In Canada's dark woods, this isn't necessary. In June, the bull trout, one of the largest trout species of the world, climbs up from Lake Kootenay into the surrounding rivers to spawn. Jerry counts the animals in the individual river segments.
Well, it's not a lot in there today. I saw one 30-centimeter Seminole bull trout. It was trying to make its way up. A little bit too small, I think, to make it up there this year, maybe next year for him. Lots of rainbow trout in there, probably about 40 of them.
At the bottom, most of the bull trout are waiting for another rain shower so that the water level will rise. Only then can they get through the narrow gorge. And still, it is an incredible feat of strength and determination for the bull trout to master these steep, rocky rapids. The rare mountain caribous have also had their young. Apart from the long-established forest dwellers, there are also some newcomers. Wild turkeys only moved into Darkwoods a few years ago. The rising temperatures in the south of Canada lure them further north, a result of climate change. By now, spring has also arrived in the mountains. Up here, it lasts barely a month. Adrian Leslie is a botanist and takes care of the trees in Darkwoods. He pays special attention to the white bark pine. The tree is endangered and finds one of its last sanctuaries in the mountains here. Adrian tries to resettle it by hand. This tree grows extremely slowly, and it needs a harsh climate. But the climate change might soon be a discomfort. Lightning has been causing more and more forest fires because some regions of Darkwoods are drying out due to no rainfall. Adrian also discovers the charred remains of the valuable white bark pine. But fires are not the only challenge for this special tree. In high valleys of Darkwoods, dozens of lakes have formed. Unlike in the Alps, the tree line is about 2,000 meters. In contrast to the Alps, the Rocky Mountains are not a weather divide. Therefore, warm winds reach higher grounds. In the short period of summer, the mountain pastures turn into a paradise of nature. The ruffed grouse must hurry up with the rearing of its chicks. Summer in the Darkwoods forest only lasts about 6 weeks. In the short span of spring, many more butterflies than one would expect look for nectar high up in the mountains. The marmots also only have a few weeks to grow fat. Here, the bark beetles struck a few years ago. They're the next challenge for the rare white bark pine. It is irreplaceable for the high altitude, for it stabilizes the slopes and keeps the ground moist. Those who survived the bark beetle are now under threat by an imported foe. Most pines are powerless and at its mercy.
Here's another white bark pine, about 20 years old, freshly infected with blister rust. You can see the canker right here. So the fungus, the spore would have landed on the needles of this branch and worked its way up into here and create these things. And you can see you got spores coming out. And this canker is going to kill everything that's above and work its way down and kill this entire tree this year or next year.
However, not all trees seem under threat. So far, a few pockets in the mountain forests have not succumbed to the bark beetle nor to the fungus. It seems that the trees here possess a very special resilience. Without the Clark's nutcracker, they would never have made it this far. In autumn, it collects their seeds and hides them. But the birds also have a tendency to forget quite a few stockpiles and thus unwittingly spread the rare tree. Now in summer, the cones aren't ripe yet, and the nutcracker prefers to avail itself of a protein meal in the shape of a bumblebee. It is late summer. Now it's time for a very special fish to take care of its offspring. Normally, salmon travel from the sea to their spawning grounds in the rivers, but during the last ice age, the Pacific sockeye salmon found its way back to the sea cut off. And thus, in the following millennia, the locked-in salmon of Lake Kootenay evolved into a Kootenay salmon, the red freshwater salmon. Like their ocean ancestors, in late summer, they also travel upstream into the surrounding rivers to spawn. In large schools, they now wait by the river mouths for the water levels to rise high enough. Jerry Nelliston, the Lord of the Darkwoods Rivers, is doing another inspection round. The onset of rain is the signal for the salmon run. Other animals also know the meaning of the downpour and travel to the river to catch some fish. The berries along their path serve as their entree. The fruit supplies the important sugar for padding the winter fat. The bald eagle can also hardly wait for the salmon to arrive. They will supply it with an important energy reserve for the meager winter months. The water level of the spawning rivers is now high enough. The red salmon are now able to get through the rapids and rock barriers. They go all out, driven by the urge to procreate. Black bears arrive early at the spawning grounds of the red salmon to get their share before the grizzlies get there. They eat the fish in the woods and leave the remains behind. Certain mosses can decompose animal protein. This way, the salmon fertilizes the forest. With its call, it seems the eagle is inviting everyone to the big feast. The grizzlies are taking a more low-key approach. They know that there is still enough for everyone. But the number of salmon in the rivers around Lake Kootenay has fallen dramatically. A virus has stricken the salmon and other species of fish. At this shallow spot, there are just a few hundred salmon spawning. It's far too few. A few years ago, there were tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands in the entire river system. But it's still enough for the hunting practice of this young eagle. The parents don't have to feed their offspring anymore, but share with their partner, perhaps? No, why should they? The bald eagles don't even hunt themselves now. They collect what the bears have left behind of the salmon. Each day, they consume many thousands of calories and are fortified for winter. In autumn, there is an extreme difference in temperature between Lake Kootenay and the mountains. The mists bring wetness and snow to Darkwoods. The bottom floor of the forest is gradually dying off. Everything organic is returned to the ground. Nothing is lost. This way, the old giant trees live on, and new virgin forest grows back. Bat scientist Corrie Lawson does her last checks in the gold and silver mines ahead of the approaching winter. As always, she is wearing a protective suit which will be burnt after the job. It's a precaution because the bats could be sick. Corrie wants to avoid spreading the disease to other caves. Unlike in spring, it is now not very dangerous to step into the caves and mining tunnels as the water is not frozen yet. Corrie notices that some of her protégés are already in their winter quarters. Her first impression is that they seem healthy.
Periodically throughout the winter hibernation period, bats will actually come out and start to fly around. We don't know why they do this. It might be in mines like this, they fly around looking for mates. They might also be flying around looking for some food.
Since bats also come here from faraway regions where diseases have been spreading for some time, Corrie is on guard. Were she to find sick animals, Corrie would quarantine them over the winter.
There's a fungus that has spread to Western North America, and that will grow during the winter on their wings and on their face. It's called white nose syndrome. Eastern North America, the white nose syndrome has actually killed millions of bats. Now that it's in Western North America, we just hope that these species that are specific to Western North America will not be destroyed in such large numbers by this invasive fungus.
So far, the Darkwoods populations show no signs of the deadly disease. Autumn has many faces. Indian summer in the Darkwoods forest is one of them. The golden yellow larches are its emblem. Larches are the only coniferous trees which drop their needles when winter approaches. It protects them from perishing in the cold and saves energy. Now the time has come for the whitebark pine's little helper. The Clark's nutcracker zealously harvests the seeds of its partner tree. It needs to hurry and bury its winter reserves under the trees before the first snow, thus sowing the seed for a new generation of white pines. It's high time for Adrian Leslie to check up on the white bark pines. He has a plan how he can save the species from the dangerous fungus which is threatening them in Darkwoods too. In spring, Adrian already put little net bags over the cones so that the jays or squirrels can't gather them. Some trees which were once looked after by German foresters seem to defy the dangerous fungus. Adrian wants to collect their seeds. The resulting seedlings are the future of the white bark pine.
This is a mature cone because it's very dry and you can actually break these bracts off. And underneath each bract there's two little seeds that you can see are mature because they fall out, and so these will grow in a greenhouse over the next couple of years, and we'll plant these seedlings at a restoration site here on Darkwoods probably in 2018. And so from this cone we'll probably get about 50 to 60 seeds, and with any luck we'll get about 40 little seedlings out of this one.
Adrian hopes to preserve the white bark pine at least in Darkwoods. It is one of their last habitats worldwide. After just 3 to 4 weeks of autumn, it's getting cold, and the Pacific sends thick snow clouds to Darkwoods. Winter has arrived. Months and months of cold and life in want begin. For the white-tailed deer, getting away is arduous again. They and the elk are not particularly well adapted to deep snow. They have to stay in the valley. For nearly 9 months, they will now live off bark and frozen shoots. Wolves know how to take advantage of this. For the mountain caribou, however, the snow is no problem. They have long since left for the high mountains to a place where they are the only ones to find very special food, far away from the wolves in the valley. The last mountain caribous make their way to the pines in the mountain forest, the ones the endangered Clark's nutcracker is closely linked to. The nutcracker is now digging up the seed depots it had created in the autumn. Pine and bird are a team, even in winter. In this region, there used to be an abundance of seeds, but with the white bark pine, the nutcracker is disappearing too. But they are still helping the few healthy pines to survive. The birds are clever. We know that they can remember far more than 30,000 stashes. But with the current pine dilemma, not that many had been created. There are but a few now, and those in competition have cast their eye on them. The raven has watched the nutcracker searching and is now looting its granary. The white bark pine houses an organism which in turn ensures the mountain caribou's survival. For these inconspicuous beard lichens, mysterious hybrid beings between fungus and algae, animals undertake travels of several days through deep snow uphill to a height of over 2,000 meters. Up here, there is no bigger animal which will challenge them over this albuminous treat. But the lichens only grow on ancient trees. They need many decades to grow this big. The old forests in dark woods secure them an airy hanging place with enough light. Most lichens hang on the middle floors. The snow is like a pedestal with which the mountain caribous get to this height. It is exactly those old lichen forests high up in the dark woods which are vital for the survival of the small population of mountain caribous that still remain. The last mountain caribous of North America are an example for how important it is to preserve the uniqueness of the Darkwoods Mountains and lake landscape. Thanks to its careful forestry, the House of Württemberg succeeded in this for many decades. The aim of the new owners, the Nature Conservancy of Canada, goes beyond that. They want to transform the forest back into a wild forest. Together, old and new forest will form a region of inestimable value for many rare animals. The rich enchantment of Canada's Darkwoods.